Steam code provided by the developer. Thank you! Upon first glance, I remember seeing Code Bunny in passing. An 8-bit styled momentum-heavy platformer inspired by classic home console platformers from the 80s? While this sort of game would be my cup of tea, I wasn't in a rush to talk about it. But people liked hearing me talk about indies, so... Code Bunny is a fantastic platformer that captures the style of 80s action platformers and takes inspirations with its story and themes from modern games. Instead of thinking the Blue Blur, let's just think they took inspiration from the Blue Bomber instead when talking about this game. Or in this case, the Blue Bunny. In Code Bunny, you are given a choice of two characters, Hazel and Axel. Both go through the same stages, but play completely differently. Hazel is a samurai soldier who can lock onto enemies and dash and slash her way through obstacles. From this, she gains momentum by jumping off them and can reach higher places or areas by chaining them together. This can be done in combat where you can lock onto multiple enemies and dispatch them that way. Hazel's gameplay focuses on getting links to build up her meter, and the more you do, the stronger and the more fragile you become. Her animations are satisfying, and there is some fun with slicing down enemies or locking onto an enemy, falling, then dashing into them at the last second, and using that momentum to carry you to higher places. Axel is a former ice skater, and his gameplay reflects that as he bounces off enemies and uses that momentum to carry him forward. His EX meter is easier to fill, and when it's full, he can unleash one specific attack. Most of his gameplay is spinning and bouncing off of enemies and using that to get to his goal. Certain boss fights can be pushovers as Axel, as his spin is an active hitbox, and if he's in the corner with the boss, kiss half of the boss's health bar goodbye. Of course, this is rewarding the player for using his abilities as needed, but this was a far cry when I fought bosses as Hazel and took multiple tries, then I'd fight the same boss as Axel and beat the allotted time by half, and get an S rank on the first try. Mastering Hazel takes a lot of practice. Even after beating the game, I still feel that while I know the character's moves, I'm not using them to their full extent. I mean, when you compare my gameplay to the actual trailers, I feel that way. She can feel a little stiff, and mechanics I would usually expect to be in a platformer, like wall jumping or other things like that, are missing. This isn't really a problem, but it does take some getting used to. I do also think the last slash in her basic combo that moves her forward has gotten me into trouble more times than I can count. You do take contact damage from all enemies, and moving the player character forward when they're just trying to regularly attack them does result in Hazel getting hit. Axel barely has this problem because if he takes damage while having an EX gauge, he'll just lose the gauge and no health is lost. But just touching an enemy as Hazel can make you say bye-bye to your combo instead of getting hit by an attack or projectile. While she is on the front of promotional material and the first character is highlighted, I recommend playing the game as Axel first. Both story and gameplay are catered to a first-time player with him. I decided to play through the game as Hazel first, but had a tougher time getting used to her mechanics. She feels more like the hard mode. With Axel, I went through and whooped the game's ass. Now, enemy placement does change for both characters to cater to their gameplay styles, so it makes a replay of the same stage feel refreshing, and each character can reach other areas more easily than their respective bunny. There are only 6 stages, and the game has different modes like Classic and Speedrun, so it's meant to be a short game played over and over again. Also, you want to do that because Speedrun mode unlocks a new move for both characters. Code Bunny is still getting updates and a free expansion in the future that adds a new campaign called Secret Dreams. It'll make sense when you play the story. It's aiming for early 2025 with new stages, enemies, and a new soundtrack, aka more bouncing around with these two critters. The story of Code Bunny has some fun characters and an intriguing narrative. The issue is that for how exciting the writing is, you kind of wish there was more of it. Both characters are part of the VY space program, which wants to get this power source known as Aether from comet Iliaster. The bunnies butt head with a crew known as Mad Bunny that is also after this same power, and they know more about it than what they let on as they continue down their path. But collecting more Aether and finding out the truth about comet Iliaster the world might change. Hazel is considered an outsider to almost everything going on and does have a character arc she goes through, while Axel has a better connection to the world around the characters you interact with. During levels, you can also select talk time to talk to the other characters. Usually, each level has around 3 conversations, and they do help flush out the relationships between the 4 main casts. When the game gets to its later parts, this starts to disappear, and I feel that it shouldn't have. I get why this is in the game, but advertising it on the Steam page and then implementing it into such a short game honestly doesn't make it work that much. Maybe if the game had 2 or 3 extra levels so we get more conversations, these dialogue conversations would have felt more used or appreciated. But here it's just kind of undercooked when realistically you get like 9 conversations as Axel and 12 as Hazel, with some of them repeating for both playthroughs. The reason I'm saying play Axel first is because if you go through Hazel's campaign first time, there is some missing context to a lot of events that are brought up during her campaign. But once you play through the Axel campaign, it makes more sense. The dialogue writing is quality and has themes about moving forward, letting go, and killing the past. There's some really good character moments that I don't want to spoil, but the story does play with the fact that it's a video game. Not in the fourth wall breaking or anything like that, but just think about the fact it's called Code Bunny for a reason. I enjoyed a lot of the character designs too, but I do think that what this game was trying to accomplish with the story, it could have used more of a 16-bit styled sprites, with some voice acting as well. I'm not hating on the sprites at all, but when I compare the artwork to the game itself, I kinda wish that the characters reflected their artwork more with a different style of sprites. And trust me, I love the dialogue in this game. And maybe with a voice cast, it would have brought the bunnies more to life in this regard. There were lines in this game that made me pause and read them again because I can tell they came from the heart, and from writers who did care about the messages they were portraying. So making that more accessible, I think, would be the next step. Another next step, after they finish all the content, could also be a new entry or follow-up that expands upon these ideas with gameplay changes that streamline how these characters play. You know, having like wall jumps and all that other fun stuff and new abilities, whatever, you know what I mean. Despite my nitpicks, I enjoyed Code Bunny. It's a very short game, taking me around 3 hours to beat with both campaigns, and I still feel I can go back and do more with the mechanics of the game and possibly speedrun it later. The game uses the mechanics on offer to create a fun experience for the player, test their knowledge of said mechanics, and it finishes up with the encouragement to do it again, but better. It's short, sweet, rich, and delicious, just like a carrot cake. What? Anyway, thanks for watching, and check out Code Bunny launching on Steam today.